Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most, JJ. Today's episode of JJ Meets World involves two things that I enjoy: the future, the next generation, high school students of today, and video games. Are they together? Are they separate? You're going to find out because you're going to consume this episode of JJ Meets World. And no matter how you consume it, I'm so glad that you found us. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
Tucker, this week I wept for the future.
Uh-oh.
And I think I'm someone who's usually a pretty good proponent of the upcoming generations and excited for sure about what they bring to the to the planning of the future of the world. But this week they let me down big time.
What happened, buddy?
Well, so I am the coach for Fargo North High's improv troupe, the Improvinati. And at the end of every year, we have something called the Yes Anders. And it's a reward. It's an awards program. Okay. So everyone votes for things like the MVP of the year and best duo and things like that, so that we can give out these awards that are usually things that I find at thrift stores that can be repurposed, because they're probably going to throw them out at the end of the summer anyway when their parents turn their room into, like some kind of sex dungeon now that the kids are gone. And I had to figure out, okay, so I usually bring some food, right? Because it's a party.
Sure.
And so I decided this year I will bring pizza because I was already pressed for time. So I made the mistake of asking, what kind of pizza should I bring? And Tucker, I would like to read to you the responses because I'm buying for 30 kids. Okay.
So
that's what you have to understand is there's a potential of 30 kids being there. And that means that I'm buying, I figured like at least 8 pizzas.
Sure. And where are you getting these pizzas from?
Okay. So that's the thing is, it wasn't until like halfway through this conversation that one of the kids asked that.
Okay.
But to me, in my mind, I would say, even when I was in high school, okay, so this guy's buying a lot of pizza. He really wants to know how many cheese, how many pepperoni, how many sausage, right? Like, he's not really asking like, hey, what kind of pizza should I buy for everybody?
I disagree, but continue.
Okay. Well, clearly you're not the type of person who's conscientious enough of the person who's bringing pizza to an event.
No, JJ, I think what you need to do is go, if you, the buyer, want the options to just be cheese, pepperoni, and sausage, then you need to say, okay, how many cheese, how many pepperoni, how many sausage? Because if you say, what kinds should I get? Of course you're going to get a million different opinions on that.
So here's the thing. It starts off with cheese, pepperoni. I don't like meat, cheese, barbecue chicken, Hawaiian, olives, pineapple and sausage, garlic chicken pizza, black olives. Where are you ordering from? We want 3 different places. Olives from this place, Hawaiian from this place, and then someone asks, is there still a Happy Joe's in town? Then someone says, can we just have a normal pizza? That's what I was thinking would happen, like pepperoni and cheese. Cheese. I like Italian sausage. Go explode on a pizza? No way. What about a Supreme? I want a vegetarian pizza, but with no mushrooms, no peppers, no onions, extra cheese, which leaves like one topping on a, on a vegetarian pizza at that point.
Right.
Then someone says, Rhombus Guys has one called the T-Rex. We should get a bunch of those. Another person comes in and says, will these be from a place or are you going to make them all? Then the next person says, yeah, because I only like one brand of frozen grocery store pizza. And at that point, I said, enough. And I realized that I should not have asked a group of pizza. And then someone goes, on the one day I can't make it, JJ brings pizza. And then someone says, where? And then at that point, I'm like, I can't even look at this anymore. I
is
just
this
can't
like
even watch.
this is a text message thread?
It's a messenger thread. It's a way that we can all communicate together without having to give out my phone number to people.
Got it. Well, okay. Well, first of all, right off the bat, any suggestion of a Hawaiian pizza, you just throw that out because that's bullshit. You don't get that. So just take Hawaiian pizzas. That's not happening. If you're getting a total of 8 pizzas, I think at minimum you do 3 cheese because pretty much everyone's going to be okay with cheese. Didn't sound like veggie was too much of a standout, so I would do maybe 3 pepperoni and or just meat lovers pizzas and then 2 veggies.
Okay, so this is what I ended up doing. 2 cheese, 2 pepperoni.
Okay, that's sensible so far.
Yep, 2 sausage.
Okay.
And 1 veggie. One slice of the veggie pizza was taken, and that's it.
That's a good call. I think that you did it right. You did it right.
Right? And I made a big deal out of it. I was like, hey, everyone who voted for a veggie pizza, like, you get up here and you eat some of this garbage because now I have to take it home and I have to eat this. This is my least favorite pizza of all.
Yeah,
this
it's no good.
BS.
And veggie pizza reheats the worst.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I might as well throw it in a crock pot and try and turn it into a soup.
Yeah, no, good
God.
Good call with doing just the one veggie. I think you could have taken 1 sausage off the board and gone with 1 extra cheese, but
here's the problem. The problem is that I made sure I said, like, if you don't eat meat, you got to go through this line first and you need to take cheese. And I noticed that none of these people were strict vegetarians. It was like a piece of pepperoni and a piece of cheese. And I was like, nay. You said cheese. And then there's someone who's like, oh, I voted for cheese, but I want pepperoni instead. And I'm just like, I might hate you kids.
Okay, here's the reason to do 1 sausage instead of 2. Or maybe replace that 1 sausage with either a cheese or a pepperoni. If someone who likes sausage pizza realizes that looks like all the sausage was eaten, but there's still pepperoni left over, they're really not bummed out. Everyone's like down. Everyone's down with pepperoni. But if you are not really into sausage pizza, but pepperoni is your absolute jam, and you show up and the pepperoni's gone and the only options you have are a veggie pizza and a sausage pizza, you might just go, you know what? I'm not that hungry.
And you know what? And I think that's fine, right? I think that is a very acceptable way to choose what you are going to eat in this thing. I also brought a collection of bags of chips.
Nice.
And the side of the box noted it had Doritos, Cool Ranch Doritos, Lay's, Fritos, barbecue, and Cheetos.
Nice.
And there's this one kid who dug through the whole box and they were like, I want like tostada chips. And I want to be like, the side of the goddamn box doesn't have a picture of tostada chips. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Are you like, honestly, this to the point of where like I have to be this worried about like what's going to happen in the future? And then I just decided, like, you know what? From now on, it's BYOS. Bring your own snack. Because I can't appeal to everything that these kids want.
Not finding your brand of chips is just one of those moments in life where you just have to employ some coping skills, you know?
You know what's going to be funny is some of them are graduating and they're going to find out next year that you don't always get the bag of chips that you want. And sometimes it's not a bag of chips. Sometimes you really want tostada chips or a date with somebody, and guess what? There's no tostada chips. Or sometimes you really want an extension on your paper, like tostada chips, and your teacher tells you that they have never given out tostada chips, and they're not going to start giving out tostada chips just because you're giving them a song and dance about your grandmother being dead.
Where
So
did you get the
kids
pizza from?
learn that. What?
Where did you get the pizza from?
Casey's.
Oh, okay. Solid.
Yeah. And I chose Casey specifically because of this. The like usually I get Domino's. I'm 19th Avenue North, right? Like my
Yeah. Oh,
pizza
sure.
options are limited. I'm not gonna get Little Caesars because I think that is disgusting. I think it's garbage pizza.
It's better than Domino's.
Oh, see, I think Domino's is much better.
Ugh.
I think like leaps and bounds. I think Domino's is better than Little
Domino's is
Caesars.
bland.
But now that there is that Casey's there, it's even better for me,
Yeah.
right? Like, because I can just order it up,
Casey's is really it's the only place to go.
and it's very reasonable. And I ordered enough pizzas that I got a free one in my app now. So as long as I don't get hacked, I should be good to go. So I also wanted to bring up a subject that I've kind of been dying to talk about for a while, Tucker, which is the Legend of Zelda.
Ooh, actually, I have a thing about this too, but I don't know if it connects with yours. So you go first.
Oh, okay. Well, a brand new Legend of Zelda game was released this last week. It's called The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, and it's a direct sequel to The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wind. Amazing Zelda game, Breath of the Wind. Even better, Tears of the Kingdom. Like somehow they improved upon something that was great already. Now, that being said, I don't think it's the best Zelda game ever. I just think it happens to be the most robust Zelda game. And this game allows you to do things that we've always kind of wanted in a game, which is like, hey, you can collect a bunch of stuff and then you can try and like build something. Oh, can I build a go-kart? Well, I've got the raw materials. I'm going to put all these things that I gathered into a stew pot and cook it. And will it taste good? Will it replenish my hearts? I don't know. We'll find out. And it really, like, it's very exciting, but it did make me think about what, in my opinion, is the best Zelda game. And I came up with my top 3. And they are in this order. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, number 1. Absolute number 1 with a bullet. That's the one that came out on the Super Nintendo. You have the light world, you have the dark world, you've got these fun characters. It's the sprite style, like overhead look. They incorporate a bunch of new stuff that they didn't have in previous Zelda games. I think that the puzzles are great. Number 2, The Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time, the Zelda game that first came out on the N64. And I will be the one to admit, I did not get that into Majora's Mask, which is the sequel to The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. But this one gives you Epona the pony. You get to go to all these different sort of like geographical lands that were so diverse and different. It is just a great game. And then it was the first time that I ever had to start writing stuff down. So like the notes to different songs. And so I would keep a notebook right next to my N64 that was like, if you're going to play the song of the time song, it's BDA, BDA, ZZA. And someone's going to call me out that that's wrong, but you get what I'm going for on that thing. Third, in that line is the original Legend of Zelda game on the Nintendo.
Ooh.
Yeah, which I think is, I mean, it's a game changer, and it's the first game that taught me what what map statistics mean when you're playing a game like that, and knowing that, okay, I need to understand how many times I can go left through this area before I have gotten myself out of the desert area and find myself in the forest area. It was like, it's just such an amazing concept for a game, and it sparked everything that we've come to love after that. Now, most of the modern Zelda games, starting with Wind Waker and going forward, are good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think they're fine. My favorite has been one that is a throwback to A Link to the Past, which is The Legend of Zelda, The Link's Awakening, that they made exclusively for the Switch a few years ago. That is that sprite style overhead, and I do dig that one a lot, but it doesn't give you quite the epic amount of gameplay that the other ones have. What's your relationship like to The Legend of Zelda?
Well, that when I had my first Nintendo as a kid, I had the gold Zelda cartridge along
Nice.
with my Mario Brothers one, Super Mario Brothers / Duck Hunt and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I mean, I was playing Zelda back then, but it was really too hard for me, and I think I might have been a little too young to really get how to dive deep into it. But then later on, when I finally got an N64, actually in adulthood, I sat down and played through most of Ocarina of Time. But I got caught up in the water level, the water temple. Is that what it is?
Where
Both that,
where you have like King Zora's daughter with you, and she's kind of a biatch.
yeah, I just remember feeling completely lost in the water temple, and I kind of burnt out after that on it. I didn't know this, but Robin Williams was a really big gamer, and he named his daughter Zelda after the Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
And it was an interview I saw recently on Facebook, I think, and it was when he was still alive and he's sitting next to Zelda and they're just playing video games and they're talking about how like their whole family just plays video games all the time. And I just thought that was very interesting, and that they used to get asked like, "Oh, did you name her after, F. Scott Fitzgerald's Zelda?" And he'd be like, "Nope, The Legend of Zelda."
So one of the things I noted in one of the interviews that I had seen was he talked about she was born and he was playing The Legend of Zelda so much because you're up late at night, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're rocking this thing back and forth, but you got to kind of do some stuff. And so he found this as an escape into, okay, I'm up with the baby for a couple hours for a feeding and I'll just play Zelda for a while. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's really great. And I wonder how many different kids have been named after a video game.
Sure.
While like someone is playing.
And I'll have to ask her, but previous guest on the podcast, Pam Strait, I believe she was really big into Zelda when it came out. I remember I knew she used to play Dragon Warrior, and I'm pretty sure Zelda back in the day, like hardcore.
To me, one of the amazing things is that Zelda tells a story in such a unique way, which is, first of all, everyone who confused the fact back in the day that Zelda was the name of the character you're playing, and it's not. You are playing Link, who is raised as one of like the fairies in the woods, but is not himself actually a fairy. He's an orphan. And he's called into these mythic quests by some kind of a connection he has to Princess Zelda. And then the evil Ganon or Ganondorf, depending on which version you're playing, has like a stranglehold on the area. And it's good versus bad. You learn these fun skills and everything from like sneaking and puzzle solving. Getting to hold the Master Sword over and over is awesome. Then you interact with all these like weird little things, like in A Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. One of the people you meet is when you're in the dark world, there's like this little tiny chipmunk man, and you help him get back to the light world. And he's a little tiny guy, and he's got a twin brother, and they're swordsmiths. And they're like, if you leave us your sword, we'll temper it for you. And so you can have your sword tempered by these two brothers, and you have to wait an arbitrary amount of time. You pretty much go and you do another quest and you come back and you don't have a sword during that time. So you're lighting things on fire with your lamp mostly. And then you go back and they're like, here you go. We did this for you. Thanks for saving my brother. And you get this awesome sword that now glows red and has like double the hit power that the old one has. And it's little, and you don't need to do that to complete the game. It is just an extra piece that kind of buffs you up. And I think it's so much fun. And the storytelling is so good on those games that you can't help but want to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I guess I never spent enough time as a kid trying to like really power through getting much further than like the first piece of the Triforce or whatever. I don't even think I got that far. I think I did that once. And I was like, oh my God, I actually got kind of far. But I think part of that too was that I really wanted to be able to save it, right? And just start, you like you'll be able to save your health or whatever, but oftentimes you have to like go and redo things over again, don't you? If you when you die in that game.
You know what happens is like their natural save point, so to speak. So like let's say you die in a dungeon, most of the time you just start back at the entrance to that dungeon.
Right. Okay.
But things that you've done up to then, so like if you've already unlocked the prize like the hook shot, you don't have to redo that again. But
Gotcha.
sometimes you have to resolve puzzle pieces as you go along, which sometimes makes it difficult and sometimes it's easy. It just depends on how the type of gamer that you are. Do you remember what's been going on, or are you making it up from the ground up? And that's the
Yeah.
thing is I think it's so intriguing, and there are levels that just piss me off to no end and just drive me nuts. And other games over the years have tried to mimic that same style and feel. So for example, I feel like the Kingdom Hearts games, which is a blending of Final Fantasy and Disney characters, borrows a lot from that. Like there's a whole episode or a whole level where you're inside the giant whale from Pinocchio in Kingdom Hearts, and that feels like when you're inside the giant sea beast in
Ah,
Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
okay. You
Also, I don't know, is it ocarina? Is that how you say it? Is that how you pronounce the flute that you play?
Ocarina? I think so, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. Also, The Legend of
Ocarina?
Zelda had for a while a comic, like a little comic strip that ran in the Nintendo Power magazines that I really loved. And I collected a bunch of them, and you could read the whole story. And it was essentially telling the story of The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. In the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, they also had these Legend of Zelda shorts, and Zelda was kind of this, like, she was a princess, but she was like, I don't need Link. Come on, idiot. You can, like, we got a Triforce to save. And Link was played kind of like a very Ferris Bueller, like, come on, princess, I got this. Don't worry about it. And I always thought that was a weird choice because I'm like, I don't think of Link as kind of this cocky jerk who thinks that he's, God's gift to women. And
Right,
I
right,
certainly don't think of the princess as this valley girl, like, like she wore a vest,
right.
and it was weird. It was just a bizarre thing.
Well, for sure, Link has been presented in all sorts of age ranges in these games, right? Like
Yeah.
he seems to be. I mean, in Ocarina, at some point, he actually gets bigger, doesn't he? Like grows larger or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, you go through like a time warp and you go
Yeah,
from being like a little kid to being, someone in their mid to late teens.
and I would think that in the Legend of Zelda, he's a little kid,
Yeah, I would
like
agree
a
with that too. Like
little
he's
kid
not,
version of himself.
and like at the beginning of A Link to the Past, you wake up and your uncle isn't there. And there's a note that says like, oh, I heard some commotion and I went to the castle, and you go and then you find your dying uncle. So you're living with your uncle, if that gives you an idea of how old you are at that point. So you're old enough to not be with your folks, but you're still too young to not have parental supervision.
You got to think that they're going to be doing a movie of this at some point.
God, I hope so. I really, really hope so. In fact, I think it's ripe for like a series. Like if HBO or Amazon Prime wanted to get behind it and do like a series, I think that would be awesome for The Legend of Zelda. I think that they could do a really good job, and we're really obsessed with the fantasy world these days, and this is prime fantasy world. There's so much content. It'd be like adapting Lord of the Rings.
But they should do like a mini series, like 6 episodes,
Right, exactly. And then
like
if it
hour
works,
long episodes.
right, and like if it works out well, you can tell another story later on.
Yeah, I mean, if they're hour long episodes, they do 6, so you get to basically tell a 6-hour movie. Is
Yeah.
really what it is.
I would love that. I'd love
Maybe the
6 hours.
last episode is like 90 minutes or something, or whatever. But
or 78
sure,
or 102. maybe
Nice.
maybe 100 minutes.
Who would you cast for voice actors? If it let's just assume it's animated in the way that they did the Mario movie. If it's
Oh,
a
that's
movie.
tough. Um, you know, a lot of modern day Legend of Zeldas don't really give Link a voice other than "Hya! Huh! Yeah." And so I think it's hard. I don't think I've got a voice when I think about it. I can tell you this much: it's not Chris Pratt.
Sure.
It's not Tom Holland. I think maybe the voice of Link is someone that we don't know
All right.
necessarily.
Well, here, just let's just take a moment here, okay? Imagine JJ that you have been flown to Nintendo headquarters,
Okay.
and you're meeting with me, and I'm HQ Nintendo. That's my
Okay.
name, and I'm the one who has decided that I'm looking for the person who's going to write and direct
Oh, okay.
our Zelda film. And it is going to be the constraint is we need it to be under 2 hours
Okay.
because we want to be able to get as many plays in theaters as possible. And you've got a year and a half to make it if you get greenlit.
Oh my God, to make an animated movie, I've got a year and a half.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be animated. It
Okay.
can be live action.
Okay. Well, so I was gonna say, if it's animated, I think part of the stunt casting is all of the living members of Kids in the Hall and Monty Python are all doing the like characters who surround it.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got Dave Foley as the voice of a shopkeeper, and then Kevin McDonald doing a female voice as his wife, and Eric Idle is the voice of one of the like a wood nymph, and John Cleese is definitely the voice of King Zora, without a doubt, right?
Okay.
So I think that there's some fun in that to like bring all of these ideas, for like, oh, it's these fun people. Jillian Jacobs from Community, I think would be a great voice for Zelda.
Okay.
She's got great comedic timing, but I've seen her do some drama as well. And I think she would be a good voice. And even if you portray Zelda as younger, she could still do that younger voice. And I think that would be really good. I would cast the same woman who did the voice of Navi in Ocarina of Time to be sort of the person, the fairy that follows Link, being like, "Hey, like listen," and because I think the fans would go crazy when they hear that. They would go like, "Oh my god!" And John Slattery is the voice of Ganon.
Wow.
And here's the thing. Here's why. Because in my interpretation of it, Ganon starts off very much like Jafar is in Aladdin, where he is sort of like he's like the hand of the king, so to speak.
He's like an advisor and he's sort of his lieutenant or whatever.
Bingo. And he doesn't show his true colors until halfway through the film. And I think Slattery would do a good job with that.
Okay, so I love this cast you've put together. I'm having trouble sort of picturing what this looks like. So can you describe for me what your ideal teaser trailer would feature? What's going to get the fans wanting to tune in?
Yep. Okay. So do you remember that god awful, in my opinion, he was like, I can't remember who did it, but it was the story of John Smith, and I think Christian Bale played him.
Are you talking the New World?
Yes. So it looks kind of like that, right? So that naturally lit and like the long grasses, and you see like a hand like kind of playing with the long grasses, and you get these kind of sweeping shots of this huge land that looks familiar, but there are things that make you go like, okay, well, I know that this isn't supposed to be real. So like you see the mountain off in the distance, you see Death Mountain with that kind of halo of smoke around it. and it leads, you see a horse like whinny, and then all of a sudden it cuts to night and you see someone riding in the distance, and thunder and lightning. And so the flashes of lightning allow you to see, is this person wearing kind of a minish cap? What's going on? And they ride and ride and ride, and they get to the drawbridge of this gigantic, it's not just a castle, but it's sort of a fortified town. And the drawbridge comes down, and the horse, jumps the last like 10 feet onto this bridge, and it rides and rides and rides and rides and rides. And just as it gets to the gate, like the actual gate of this palace, this giant beam of light comes down, and you can tell that it's bad magic, right? Sort of like the beam that comes down in Ghostbusters when they blow the containment unit.
Sure.
And you see this guy who's got, he doesn't have like he's got a cloak on but not a hood, and he gets off, and the next thing you see is his hand, and he takes out like the master sword, right? And he puts it into his like back, like the what's the sleeve that you put a sword into?
The scabbard?
The scabbard. So he puts it into the scabbard that's on his back, and you see for the first time ever now that shield, right? The blue shield with the iconic Zelda sort of the typography and stuff on it, and you hear bum ba ba bum ba bum ba ba bum ba bum ba ba bum ba dun 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 dun, and it's in the summer of 2024. And then so you don't get like a direct look at what this is, but then you see all these it's a fast cut of all of these monsters, and it's not just one monster. You see a bunch. Like clearly he's going to have to take on a ton of different things, because that's the one thing about my Zelda movie studio bosses, is that he's going to quickly go through at least 6 temples. So there's going to be all these different areas and opportunities for us to look at, like, this is an epic journey and not just going from one place to the other like the D&D movie was. Also, I think we got a great opportunity here to make a deal with some place like KFC, and they can have the Legend of Zelda meal. Just throwing that out there. Let's all chicken legs.
Well, we currently have a partnership with Taco Bell, so.
Oof. Okay. In that case, I would like to pitch you my Metroid Prime movie then, because that really leans into taco meat. But it did make me think just recently about how much I love video games, and not that I play all the time. I know people who video games are their entire life, and you know what? Good for them. Fantastic. Proud of you. But for me, there's kind of a game like every 5 years that just captivates my imagination the same way a good book would, or a great movie. And for me, I can tell you the summer of 2023 is going to be Tears of the Kingdom, which is amazing because for the last like 2 months, I've been telling people how amazing the Harry Potter Legacy game is.
It's already gotten you to move along from Harry Potter?
I mean, I've got some Harry Potter left to do, and I will get through that. But I'm fully into this. I'm ready to go. And also the fact that the Switch is so easy to take with me wherever I want to go.
Sure. Did you make a wizard that looks like you?
No.
Oh, okay.
So, in fact, I think like he's got JJ-ish features in some way. If you said, oh, okay, he's got this, but my guy's got these 3 scars on him. Like he looks like he's maybe attacked by a werewolf that go across his entire face. And my guy loves wearing a scarf, and I don't wear scarves anymore because I don't have hickeys like I did when I was in high school.
Which house did you get sorted into?
Hufflepuff.
Was that the right one for you? Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, I feel like a puff.
Okay.
I'm very happy with it. I know a couple of people, like previous guest Britta Nelson, who is just at like 180 hours locked into it because she's played through every house now.
Okay.
So which is great. Good for her, right?
Damn, that's some commitment. Is she a huge Potterhead?
She's major Potterhead. She is, I can say this without a doubt, she's a bigger fan than I am twofold.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Although that being said, I've seen Harry Potter and the Cursed Child on Broadway, and she hasn't. So no big deal or anything like that.
I remember at one point years ago, they were rumored to be making a Mega Man movie, and
Yeah.
the rumored casting was Elijah Wood, which I think would have been a grand slam. Like, that would have been absolutely. He looks like an anime character. But Mega Man would be a really fun movie to see get made.
I think that Mega Man's one of those great movies. Although here's the problem, though. We know we love Mega Man, but he himself is not an engaging emotional character to my knowledge, right?
Well, you see that now. I mean, you put the right actor in there and give him the right writer.
But he's a RoboCop, right? Like, he's half machine, half human.
Yeah.
So you got to write double the amount of human emotions.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, because he doesn't feel the same things we all feel. I think what would be important in a Mega Man movie is to give Dr. Light a daughter or an assistant who's in love with Mega Man, but he doesn't know how to love back.
Ooh, for Dr. Light,
Yeah.
Nick Offerman.
Oh, yes.
That would
dye
be
his beard and hair white. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now, who plays Dr. Wily? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, my father-in-law looks exactly like Dr. Wily. Pete Anderson looks. I did a side-by-side comparison once, and I'm like, oh my god, these two are the exact same person. So I'm gonna throw him out there as an option.
I'm a big fan of Mega Man X.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect Mega Man game.
Yeah, totally.
Although, at one point, like, aren't you a little bummed that you don't have the dog?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, I also like that it's definitely a challenging game, but it's not nearly as hard as the Mega Man Nintendo games are, which are throw your controller against the wall hard. Like, the absolute most infuriating games on the planet are some of the earliest Mega Man games.
I'd like to read you the synopsis of a movie I think should be turned into a video game. Are you ready? If Kate and Max itch, the killers after them know where to scratch. If they order pizza, slip into a hotel, or go online, high-tech surveillance equipment instantly pinpoints them. The killers are sure the two have met their match. It's a match, all right. One to light a hellfire of retaliation. The action's hot and the clinches are steamy in fair game. A thrill upon thrill adventure pairing supermodel Cindy Crawford as Miami attorney Kate McQueen and William Baldwin from the film Sliver as homicide cop Max Kirkpatrick. Determined to protect Kate when she's targeted by an ex-KGB operative and his commandos, mega hit producer Joel Silver and first-time director Andrew Sipes craft the movie equivalent of a perpetual motion machine. Explosions boil up to the sky, a car chase becomes a freeway pinball game, and helicopters, humming electronics, and a roaring train deliver more than slam for your bam. Kate and Max are on the run. Buckle up for the movie that keeps up with them.
So how long into that do you think it takes an average person to decide whether or not they're going to read the movie? Do you think someone gets all the way down to helicopters and then decides at that moment, you know what, I am going to watch this movie?
You know, it's a good question. I do know for a fact that the moment that I went, oh no, when I was watching, like when I watched the movie itself, when I rented it in 1996, movie came out in 95, rented it on VHS in 96, was, do you know who Dan Hedaya is? If I talk about the actor Dan Hedaya?
I don't think so, no.
Dan Hedaya played Richard Nixon in the movie Dick, the lampooning of the Watergate scandal.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he also was Doug and Steve Butabi's dad in the Night at the Roxbury movie. You've probably seen him in a bunch of stuff. Anyway.
It's bringing up a boat motor for some reason.
Okay, so that actually leads into the quote is, she's Cindy Crawford's an attorney in this, and she's like a divorce attorney, and he plays another divorce attorney, and it's the very beginning of the movie, and he goes, come on, there's no assets left. He's penniless. And she goes, are you familiar with maritime law? And he goes, you mean boats? And she goes, yes. And he goes, I know that he's got a 75-foot, like, blah, blah, blah sink thing out in the harbor. And he goes, oh, I didn't know anything about this. And I said, oh, God, she doesn't know what maritime law is. She's just reciting what's on the paper. But I watched through the whole thing. I've
found
seen
him
it probably 50 times.
I found him. I know who you're talking about now.
You know who Dan Hedaya is?
Yeah, I do.
Dan Hedaya also plays the nephew of the owner of the Chicago Cubs in Rookie of the Year, where the little boy becomes the pitcher for the Chicago Cubs.
He looks like he could be related to Eugene Levy in some way.
Without a doubt.
It's probably
like,
the eyebrows.
Brothers.
Probably in the eyebrows.
Dan Hedaya is one of those actors who I could actually watch do just about anything. I think he's a lot of fun.
So, okay, if they're making, they've made plenty of video game movies. What do you think are like the top 3 best video game movies of all time? Like, and objectively.
Oof, that's a tough call because most of them are garbage.
Most of them are garbage. And the thing is like the ones that I like, I feel like it's probably just because of my childhood nostalgia for them, because I really like the first Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah.
But if I were to rewatch it now, I'd probably like, oof, okay, yeah, no, I remember how cheesy it would be by today's standards. But I thought that was at minimum, it was an incredibly accurate capturing of the characters in the video game, right? Versus like the Super Mario Brothers movie where, that's Mario and Luigi, but everything around them is just drastically different.
I remember seeing the Mortal Kombat movie in Bemidji, Minnesota. I was with like some family friends and we were at a resort and it started to rain. And I said, hey, there's a movie theater nearby. Let's all go to a movie. And they're like, no, we're all going to stick around and we're going to play this board game.
Gross.
And I was like, no, thank you. And so I went to the front desk and I asked if they had a shuttle. And they said, no, we don't. What do you need? And I said, I need to get to the movie theater. And they're like, oh, well, hold on. And one of the like bellhops drove me to the movie theater. And I made my own double feature of Mortal Kombat and the Babysitters Club movie. And you know what? I loved the Mortal Kombat movie. What's the name of the guy with the 6 arms?
Goro.
I thought they did, like, at the time, I thought they did an amazing job with Goro.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it looked so cool. And, like, I was ready for Raiden to bring in the lightning, and I'm like, oh, let's do this thing. And it had Brigitte. It's now Bridget Sampras, but I don't remember what her name was before. But she was in Billy Madison. She was the love interest in Billy Madison.
Yeah,
she was in it, and it was so good. Oh, I loved it.
She was
so
amazing in it as Sonya Blade.
Yeah, and I remember like watching Sub-Zero and Scorpion and be like, "Oh my god, they're gonna do it!"
Yeah, watching the Scorpion and Johnny Cage fight was amazing. Did you ever watch Mortal Kombat Annihilation?
I did not. I have not seen any of the other Mortal Kombat movies.
So Mortal Kombat Annihilation opens right where the first movie ends, where like the Emperor Shao Kahn or whatever his name is, I can't remember what his name exactly, but appears. And so now it starts right there. But now, if I remember correctly, Johnny Cage, I think, is played by the same guy, but now his hair is dyed black. Like they didn't correct that for what they were doing.
Okay.
And then he gets killed in like 2 minutes. Like he's just dead. And then Johnny Cage is out. We don't have him anymore because they've got all these new characters they want to bring in. So they're trying to make space for them. And I remember as a kid even thinking, oh, okay, this sucks. This is no good.
Do you think that there's somebody out there who's an expert on all of the Mortal Kombat movies and has a really like deep understanding and a deep feeling for each of them?
I bet I do. I think a buddy of mine might have that, but I'm not sure.
Really?
Yeah, James Wood. He's really into Mortal Kombat, if I remember correctly. I'll have to ask him.
I think that would be an amazing guest to have on, to be walked through all of the Mortal Kombat movies.
He would be a return guest too, because he was on long time ago, obviously.
Yeah.
I think before we got into 100 episodes he was on. But yeah, let's bring James back in. And James is just a cool guy to hang out with anyways, but we definitely talk Mortal Kombat. He can also talk horror films like crazy.
So going back to your question about like the best video game adaptations.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if I had to pick, I think that Sonic is up there. I was surprised at how much I liked the Sonic movie,
Yeah.
even though it has so incredibly little to do with the actual plot line of the Sonic games.
But they don't really have a huge plot, really. It's like Robotnik has captured all these animals and you're setting them free.
Right, but I mean, like, but you don't get any of that in the Sonic movie, right? I mean, just like,
Sure.
and for example, my other one, Detective Pikachu, brings you into the world of Pokemon, but it's not like it's got very little to do with the actual like idea behind.
God, you know,
Pokemon.
I own that movie on Blu-ray and I haven't even watched it yet. I have to watch
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah.
It's actually kind of clever, but the ending you goes, oh no.
Right. And like unfortunately we cannot count the wizard in this
No.
because that's not a video game adaptation, but it is about a kid who plays video games. Of course, it is like basically an advertisement for Super Mario 3.
Which is awesome.
But so I would give it like hey, you know, just it needs some special attention. Like, hey, you should always bring up the wizard in a video game movie conversation, but it doesn't get to make the list of like the video game adaptations, which largely blow.
Did you go to Uncharted with me? Did I see that with you? So Uncharted, which is sort of a 21st century version of Indiana Jones, is one of like if the video game series is out of this world, right? It feels like you're playing an Indiana Jones movie. It's awesome. And they developed it into a movie, and it's got Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland and Antonio Banderas. And the thing is there is an extended scene that takes place in Rome, but you are inside of a Papa John's in Rome.
Really?
And like a long action sequence. Like they're in the sewers trying to find this cross that they can use to unlock some kind of like old warship, and Mark Wahlberg is tracking them, and it turns out they're right underneath a Papa John's. So he goes into the Papa John's and he's hanging out, and they're like, hey, would you like some Papa John's pizza? And he goes, no, I don't have time. They're like, hey, we got some hot and ready pizza for you and a pretzel twist.
Holy shit.
And he's like, no,
Really?
thank you. And so then Tom Holland gets out of there, and it's in there for so long that I shit you not, Tucker, I walked out of the theater, went to go to the bathroom, and I placed an order for Papa John's pickup on my way home. I was like, good work, internal marketing. You got me.
I never, ever crave Papa John's, ever. That's like bottom of the list for me. Absolute bottom of the list.
I like the garlic butter.
So
like
you're
it.
you're gonna spend full pizza money on garlic butter?
Yeah, I will.
God, I love
garlic butter's so good.
I loved it when that that CEO dude got fired, and then he claimed
when they outed Papa,
and then he claimed to be like saying ever since I got fired, the quality of the pizzas have gone down, and he said something crazy like he'd eaten 72 pizzas that month.
Yeah,
from them. I just think like that is insane. That is so much fucking pizza.
I am a huge fan of eating pizza at like 1:00 in the morning, and I'm always disappointed when someone like shows up with Papa John's pizza.
Yeah.
I eat it still, but I'm disappointed, right? Like,
yeah.
I think it's probably the same way that I feel about making love, is that I'm always going to take it up, but sometimes I'm disappointed.
You're saying that every time you make sweet love, you bring your A game, and it's always the partner who doesn't.
Yes, 100%. I am a lover who loves to love. I can tell you this right now, and I've been that way ever since my first opportunity way back when. And I've always taken the time to be I've always taken the time to be the how do I want to say this? I've been the In-N-Out burger of lovers, right?
I don't know what that means.
You can't always get it because sometimes you're not close to it in proximity, but
Yeah.
everyone's heard about it.
So really, it's sorry, not available in your state.
Yep, bingo. And if you want, you can buy it online and have it shipped to you. That's me. Also, by the way, I think one of the worst. I know that I don't have a top 3 because there's just so many bad video game movies out there. You know, like there's the whole Resident Evil series, and truth be told, I've only seen the first one of that. There's a
Yeah.
movie I went to during the right when movie theaters were opening up again called The Werewolves Within. That's based off of a video game, but I had never played the game or heard of it. And I like that because I love Sam Richardson. He's
Well,
an amazing actor.
You know, JJ, what we cannot forget is the video game movie that you and I basically bonded over at the McDonald's the morning of, which was Final
Yeah.
Fantasy: The Spirits Within. And it's not a good movie, but because of its place in our friendship, it's going to be on maybe my top 5, not my top 3, right? Because we're talking top 3, but it's
Sure.
up there for me just because of that. But that's another example of, you know, Final Fantasy games were known for their awesome storytelling, so it felt like, oh, this will be an easy hit for them then to make
Right,
a
this is
movie.
a no-brainer.
They know how to write a story, and they just totally biffed it. Like, damn.
Have you watched that movie since that day that we
No.
went to it?
I'm pretty sure I've seen it since then. I just can't remember how long it's been, but I can tell you this much. I probably only watched it one more time after that, and it probably would have been during high school still, maybe. I don't know. So it's been 20 years probably since I've seen it.
Yeah. I will tell you this much. I saw it that day we watched it, and I have not seen it since. And not because I was like, this movie's so awful and so bad, but purely because it never seems to be available. Like it never pops up as like, oh, we added it to HBO this month, or it's available on Prime. You just never see it anywhere.
Its biggest sin is it's boring. It's not like
Bingo.
poorly made, you know, or poorly executed. You know, sure, there's cool sci-fi concepts in it and stuff, but ultimately it's just kind of boring. It's not super interesting. And yeah, I just think, I mean, on the one hand, I'm down with them trying to go wildly against type and try something different, right? Because it was very different than the games. But ultimately, it just was at the same time, I know that they were developing all this new animation tech. So it might be
Yep.
something where they really focused on that and just didn't give the storytelling what it needed. But as a Final Fantasy fan going and watching it, I was like, you should have just called this The Spirits Within. Final Fantasy shouldn't really be a part of it because
Right.
there's nothing about this that is really Final Fantasy.
It kind of made me think, like, did you have the rights to Final Fantasy? And if you didn't make a movie, you were going to lose them. And so you're like, this is the Final Fantasy movie. They're like, it is? And be like, sure it is.
Yeah. No, I do remember being really excited about this movie because I loved Final Fantasy. I was obsessed with it. And I was really impressed with how, at the time, human looking some of the animations were in certain
Yeah, I mean,
shots
we
at
thought this
certain
thing was
points.
going to set the standard going forward.
Yeah.
what
And
to
there
expect.
was a lot of talk about digital actors versus real actors at the time, and yeah, it was very, very, very interesting. But no, Spirits Within. You know what? Right now, I couldn't even tell you what that movie's about. I really don't remember.
I think that it had scientists
Yep,
and
it's
outer
definitely
space.
it's got some spirits, and they're within.
Oh, that's right. They are within.
I don't know
And
what they are within, though. They're within the planet? I don't know. And James Woods
it's
plays a character. Not my friend James Wood, but James Woods, the actor.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I guess you and I'll have to have a rewatch of that someday soon.
You know, we haven't done a commentary track episode, and the times that we do, it's like we pick a movie that almost no one would ever want to watch again. So let's do Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
It's a great idea because, not only is it something that is going to be difficult for people to find if they want to sync it up, but also our commentary episodes are easily the lowest listened to episodes of JJ Meets World. So we'll just burn a couple out that we where we don't need to do that. By the way, that reminds me, this episode of JJ Meets World is brought to you by Arnold Schwarzenegger Motorcycles. That's right. The Terminator himself is designing his own motorcycles. So if you don't have a Tuma and you have money, you should go to Arnold Schwarzenegger Motorcycles, because these motorcycles are, quote, better than Sylvester Stallone's motorcycles. Only available in Austria. So that's a good episode. We can put this one in the can. And pretty quick here, Tucker, we're going to have some exciting JJ Meets World news to announce to everyone.
Yeah.
Very excited about that.
Cool. In a week or two.
Yeah, I'm going to say 2. I say 2 weeks. Let's not get crazy, right?
Let's not get crazy. That works for me.
Yeah, I like that. All right. Bye, Tucker. I love you.
Love you too.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. Here's the real problem with kids today. They don't know how to balance a checkbook. And I know what you're saying. We don't have a lot of checks these days. But you know what? That's something that they should know how to do. And sew on a button.